Hello, welcome back to the channel. I am 8 Mullinger Mauser Man. I want to apologize ahead of time if this video feels a little bit clunkier than usual, but I am trying to share with you 3 different lots of ammunition from 2 different years, and that is Argentinian ammo from 1954 and 1955. The first lot I have was from 1954 and sent to me by a viewer. I don't know if I have permission to share his name, so you know who you are and thank you so much, and if you leave a comment because I know that you watch, I will definitely pin that if you would like me to. Now, the second 2 lots come from what I purchased at a gun show. It was a mixed bag of Argentinian ammo from 1954, 1955, and then some Yugoslavian ammo from the 50s as well. So the first video that you're going to see is me shooting the ammunition the viewer sent me from 1954. The second will be the ammunition that I picked up from 1954 from the gun show, and then the second will be the ammunition from 1955. Now, after that, things should square away a little bit, but the shooting segment will just have a few more details than usual. I hope you enjoy.
Today I have Argentinian ammo made in Ecuador in 1954. There we go, that didn't really want to feed. $2,547. That one we had a chronograph error. $2,520. This ammo is getting really sticky. 2,574. However, this is the 3rd ammo that I'm shooting today, so I've already shot about 23, 24 rounds at this point. 2,473. All right, let's shoot our second clip. $2,510. Okay, we just had a second chronograph error. The sun is going down, so that's probably causing all of these chronograph errors. 2,523. $2,541. $2,463. I'm just going to fire a couple more rounds really quick because we did have some chronograph errors. $2,569. I pretty heavily anticipated the recoil there. That was a failure to fire. $2,542. So I found another batch of the Argentinian ammo from 1954, and so I'm not going to shoot it through the chronograph again. Those numbers should stay the same, but I wanted to see if we had more or less duds or hang fires. Now, off camera, I did have one round that did not fire at all, was a complete dud, and one round that fired perfectly fine, but I have 2 more clips and we'll see how those go. Failure to fire. That first round did fire correctly though. That round fired correctly too. This is the one that failed to fire on that first primer hit. We'll see how it does the second time. Failure to fire again. I do have one more clip of Argentinian ammo from 1954 that's in this right now. Failure to fire. Failure to fire. Failure to fire. And failure to fire. So it seems like with this second batch of Argentinian ammo from 1954, 6 out of 10 rounds fired properly, however 4 of them failed to fire completely. That Argentinian ammo from 1954 did not do great, so I'm not anticipating much better results with the ammo from 1955. $2,559. $2,457. $2,497. $2,529. $2,485. All right, clip 2. $2,525. That round is hard to extract, but everything else fired properly. 2,528. $2,503. $2,502. $2,498.
So I hope you enjoyed the time on the range. The ammunition from 1954 had a velocity low of 2,463 and a velocity high of 2,574. That leads to a total spread of 111 feet per second from the lowest to the highest, and that gives us an average of 2,562.3. Now, with that first lot, 91.7% of the rounds fired correctly. That is 11 out of 12 rounds. And 1 fired on the second primer hit, so that is 8.3% that fired on the second primer hit. However, I did not experience any complete duds or hang fires with this ammunition. However, with the second lot of ammo from 1954, 60% of the rounds fired correctly. That is just on the first primer hit with no hang fire, and 40% were duds. They didn't fire at all. So when I needed to tear apart rounds later, those were the rounds that I used for that. Now, because this is 2 different lots of ammunition, likely what this means is that they were stored differently once they got to the United States, or were stored in different places in Ecuador. Why is this ammo in Ecuador? Just wait, we're going to talk about that. Now, with the ammo from 1955, the lowest velocity was 2,457, and the highest was 2,559. That leads to a total spread of 102 feet per second from the lowest to the highest. That is about equally consistent to the ammunition from 1954, and both of those, while they're not spectacular, are within, what we would expect for standard ball ammunition. Now, the average for that round was 2,508.3. You'll notice that is a little bit over 50 feet per second slower than the ammunition from 1954. I don't think this is necessarily indicative of this ammunition being manufactured to a different specification. However, that is possible because the powder did have some different measurements. But because I chronographed this ammunition on a different day, it could have just been that this ammunition was at a different velocity because the weather was different. It's one of those weird things that can happen when you chronograph ammunition. Every single one of these rounds fired correctly. However, one thing that I do want to note was in the bag that I received, some of the rounds did have primer hits. What this could likely mean was that because my Mauser does have an upgraded spring in it, and I have made sure that my firing pin is in spec, I'm getting a higher likelihood of actually getting proper hits compared to other rounds. So depending on your Mauser, you could have some duds even if you had the exact same ammunition that I fired. But as a recap for the numbers, the ammunition that the viewer sent me, 91.7 of those rounds fired correctly, that is 11 out of 12, and one of those rounds, or 8.3%, fired on the second primer hit. And then with the ammunition that I got in the mixed lot together, from 1964, 60% of the rounds fired correctly, and then 40% were duds. And then with the ammunition from 1955, all of the rounds fired correctly. Now, like usual, I'd like to start by showing you the box. However, I don't actually have boxes for this ammo. So I have some pictures that the viewer who sent me this ammo also sent me, and that's what's going to be on the screen right now. On the top, it says Ecuadorian Army, as you can see, and then on the side, it says all of these different things. These are actually 4 different boxes because there were different loadings for this ammo, like blanks and training rounds. But focusing specifically on the ammunition today, it says 15 SS cartridges. That's saying specifically the designation of this ammunition. Now, let's look at the head stamps for these rounds. Oh, I should also note that these rounds did come on stripper clips. Now, here is the head stamp for these rounds. You can see they say 792 at the top, and then have an A on either side, and then 1954 on this one, and 1955 on this one. These, as far as we know, were the only 2 years that this ammunition was actually produced. So because of that, because those are the only 2 years, this video is going to be my first video where I actually have all of the years for the production for this ammunition. Now, the 792 is the cartridge, and that bottom number is the date, but as for the AA, the simple answer is, we're not entirely sure what that means. Some people have guessed that it says armas automáticos, which would be automatic arms, but this ammunition is clipped, so that's probably not very likely. Another option is that it was made for the Navy, but even then, we're just not entirely sure on that either, since it does say Ecuadorian Army on the top. Now, a part of it could just be that it's marking it was made in Argentina, so that's what the A is for, is Argentina. Again, we don't really know entirely about this ammunition. Your guess is as good as mine. We should also note that it does have a sealant in the back. It may look black from your perspective, but it is in fact green. Now, the last thing that I would like to show you with this ammo is that if we shine a light in here at the right angle, and I'm trying to get that to you, there you go, you can see that there is some oxidization, that's what that green color is, inside of the rounds from 1955. Now, this could either mean some moisture got inside of the rounds, or that the powder was not properly refined all the way, and because of that, it bled in the acid that caused that oxidization. Another sign of this is that the rounds from 1955, which are right here on the right, do have some rust on the base that the ones from 1954 do not have. Only the ones from 1955 had that rust. Now, this could be a sign of my particular lot of ammo, not necessarily all of the rounds manufactured in 1955. Now, when we talk about the history of this particular ammunition, there are a lot of unknowns. So we're going to start with what we do know. And what we do know is that this ammunition was manufactured in Argentina for Ecuador, or at least we find boxes in Ecuador. It was manufactured at Fábrica Militar de Cartuchos, which just means military cartridge factory. So we do know that this ammunition was manufactured in Argentina, and we do know that this ammunition was found in Ecuador, not Argentina, when we find it today. It's found in boxes labeled Ecuadorian Army. Why Argentina was the ones who manufactured this ammo, and why we don't really know much about this ammo isn't necessarily clear, but we do know that it was made and sold to Ecuador. Now, there are a few different possibilities. One is just that Ecuador didn't have the facilities ready to manufacture this ammo, and so they contracted it out to Argentina. This is a common thing, and in Europe we can find plenty of instances where one country manufactured ammunition for another country. However, we don't necessarily have any records of buying or selling between these two countries for this particular ammo. So the other option is that this ammunition was manufactured for some sort of clandestine reason. It wasn't necessarily wanted to be known that this ammunition was manufactured in Argentina until much later when we found that information out. So that is about all we know. This ammunition was manufactured in Argentina, and it was found today in boxes that are labeled for the Ecuadorian Army. However, many believe that this ammunition was made for clandestine reasons, but of course there are always other possibilities, and records do just get lost to time sometimes. Now, when it comes to the bullets, the bullet weight low for the ammunition from 1954 is 195.7 grains, and then the high is 197.5 grains. That leads to a spread of 1.8 grains from lowest to the highest. Again, not great, but about what we'd expect for ball ammunition. and that leads to an average of 196.95 grains. Now with the ammunition manufactured in 1955, the low is 196.7, high 198.2 grains, and then the spread of 1.5 grains from lowest to the highest. This is right in that window with the ammunition from 1954, and the average for the ammunition from 1954 is 197.32. While that is a little bit higher than with the other ammunition, it's close enough that I don't necessarily think this is higher because it was manufactured differently, just that the bullets I pulled just happened to be a little bit higher. It was a coincidence. If I wanted to, I could pull a lot more rounds and measure these things with a lot more accuracy. It seems from this that the ammunition is made to a similar specification.
Now, other than that rust issue I already talked about, the bullets from 1954 and 1955 are identical. So as you can see, this is a silver color on the outside, and then it does have a lead core. Now, this ammunition does draw a magnet. I'll be sure to include a note down at the bottom if this ammunition has a steel core or if it is just the jacket that is magnetic.
Now, when we talk about powder, that's where things do get a little bit interesting. The powder low for the ammunition from 1954 is 43.5 grains, and then the high is 44.6 grains, with a spread of 1.1 grains, again, about average, nothing major. And then the bullet weight low for the ammunition from 1955 was 44.8, and then a high of 45.1, so 0.3 grains from lowest to highest. Now, the averages were 44.15 grains and then 44.98 grains, respectively. What I noticed with the ammunition from 1955 was that the powder was hovering right around 45 grains, and it was a much tighter group. So this seems to imply that at least to some degree they did try to tighten that powder scale down in 1955, and it wasn't in 1954. Again, that's just conjecture. I'm sure we could find some sort of record if we searched some factory in Argentina, but that's what we've got.
The powder is also identical between the 2 years, so this is the powder from 1954, but the powder from 1955 looks exactly the same. It is just a standard flake powder. Now, the one thing I will say about the powder from 1955 that I didn't notice with the powder from 1954 but could have been there was that the powder from 1955 had some substance inside of it. It sort of looked like a cardboard or a paper that was just inside of it. Now, I did take some pictures as I was pulling the bullets, so you'll be able to see that right now. I'm honestly not quite sure entirely what this was. It could have either been something that flaked off from inside of the case, since the inside of the case did have that oxidization, or it could have been something that was inside of the powder that caused some other issues, such as the oxidization.
Now for my opinion, this ammunition is corrosive, so if you shoot it, you should clean your bore in extra ways. However, I do have a video up about cleaning after shooting corrosive ammunition, so go check that out and maybe that can help you out. But I had pretty mixed results with Argentinian ammo from 1954 and 1955. With the ammunition from 1954, from two separate lots, I had wildly different results. And then with the ammunition from 1955, well, I only fired 10 rounds, every one of them fired correctly. However, what I think is going on here is that what we can see is that this ammunition, when you find it, is going to be inconsistent. With some rounds that you will find, all of the ammo is good. For example, Yugoslavian ammo from the 70s. Unless that ammo had some major bad things happen to it, it's going to be fine. And then some ammunition is almost all bad. For example, Ethiopian ammo. That ammunition is almost all not going to be great. However, with this ammunition, if you buy it, you are taking a risk. So I would say don't spend too much on it, and then if you get it, fire a few rounds and see how it does, and if you feel comfortable shooting it, then go ahead and shoot it. And if not, either tear it down for components yourself, or sell it to somebody who could tear it down for components, because at least in my experience, the bullets and the powder was perfectly fine. It's just that the primers were starting to go bad. So, is this ammunition good? Well, that kind of depends on the particular lot that you happen to have. So, I would say buy it and see if it's for a good price. If somebody's charging a really high price, it is unique ammo, so maybe you're looking for it for a collection, and if you're looking for it for a collection, you should grab some. However, if you were just looking for it to shoot, I wouldn't really recommend spending that much on it, but if you can find it at a good price, I'd say go for it. All of that being said, I am 8mm Mauser Man, and I fired a bag of random gun store ammunition, but I lived on.
Which proves it's hard to get the best of a man named John.
John.